Welcome to It's Written in the Stars. It is official, ladies and gentlemen. It is in the stars. Please pardon my corniness, but corny is what I do best. In this webinar, you will be learning about the SCs or the student expectations that will be tested in reading in the spring of 2022. I am Ivan Dominguez, your middle school reading language arts coordinator and presenter for today. So what materials will you be needing for this webinar? The first thing is the handout that has the test design and the blueprint. Then you will be needing the tested SE's guide and something to write with, pen or pencil, highlighter, and I highly recommend that you have some sticky notes handy. I wanted to first share with you the resources that I referenced. Everything that you will be seeing today all comes directly from TEA. So what documents did TEA recently release that will help us know more about the Spring 2020 reading test? The first one is the test design, and there is one per grade level. The second document is the blueprint, also one per grade level. And last but not least, the star of the show, the Assess Curriculum Guide, also by grade level. Be assured that they have a lot of commonalities by grade level, so in reviewing each one, I will point to the similarities and differences by grade level. They are minimal. Please know, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot stress this enough, that this is only for the spring of 2022. Let's look at the test design first. We will use the 6th grade test design as our basis, and then I will address 7th and 8th grade. So be ready to take some notes, and by all means, stop the webinar anytime you need to take some notes or at any point that you need to. So let's start with the base test first. The base test is what all students will get. So let's look at the number of passages that students are likely to encounter. When it comes to 6th grade, it could be 3 to 5 single selections, while 7th and 8th grade may encounter 4 to 5 single reading selections. Then note that students in grades 6 through 8, all of them, 6 through 8, will have paired texts. So let's look at the number of questions. The total number of questions that students will get is 40 for 6th grade, multiple choice, 42 for 7th grade, and 44 for 8th grade. The number of questions is the same as it has been in previous years, so that has not changed. So let's move on to the genres that will be eligible for testing. And this applies to all grades 6 through 8. And I want to elaborate a little bit more on what I mean by eligible. It means that any of these genres can appear on the test. It does not mean that they're going to be testing them all. It simply means that the state is letting us know that all of these are eligible for testing. So of course, as teachers that we are, we want to make sure that our students are prepared for any of these genres. So what are they? Fiction in the form of a short story, just a friendly reminder there, poetry, drama, literary nonfiction, typically in the form of a memoir, again another reminder, and then your informational texts. And then this one, for those of you that are experienced seasoned teachers, are looking at argumentative, you know that this has not appeared before, so it is new. So argumentative was added to our TEKS, and it is going to be the first time that it is tested. So you really want to make a big note of that, ladies and gentlemen. When students tell you, I don't know what that is accurate, and that is because it has not appeared in tests before, and it's a fairly new genre for us. It is a new genre. So that's what I wanted to say about the base test. And again, remember, this is what all students get. So let's look at the field test. The field test simply means that some students may or may not get some questions, may or may not. So it'll vary by student, and what they get on their assessment also will vary. Some students won't get any field test questions at all. 6th grade will only get 40, 7th 42, 8th 44, and that's it. While other students are maybe seeing 6 additional questions on their assessment. So if students get those, what are they likely to get? They might get a single reading selection with 6 multiple choice items embedded, or a paired selection with 6 multiple choice items embedded, or a writing selection. But these are only, notice, 6 multiple choice items. And that is in regards to revising or editing. Okay, so that's what I wanted to let you know about the field test. The last thing that you will see here is the total reading load. When it comes down to 6th grade, the base test is 3,700 words maximum. 7th grade test is 3,900 words maximum. 8th grade is 4,100 words. The last thing I wanted to mention here is that students will continue to have 4 hours to finish the test, just as in previous years. So I gave you a lot of information just to start us off with the test design. So I want you to process it for a little bit. I want to give you a little bit of think time, just a little bit of processing time. And the question I want you to ponder about is, why is this information important for us? Why is it important for our students? I will give you some time to think. I'm thinking you may have thought about some of these. I know the very first thing that we think of as teachers is stamina. Okay, it's stamina. Another thing that you may have thought about is the importance, ladies and gentlemen, of giving our students cold reads. Remember that when they go into that STAAR test, they're not going to be tested on a particular novel or a particular selection. When they go into that assessment, they're going to encounter readings that they have not seen. So it's important that we arm them with those skills to know how to read each different genre. Remember all the genres that are eligible for testing? Students are continuously shifting gears by genre. 1 minute they're reading a poem, the next moment they're given an informational piece, and the genre demands, as Leap Forward tells us, are different for each one. The way I read a poem is not the way I read an informational piece. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, that when it comes down to informational, students are going to be encountering the topics typically on those informational pieces tend to be science or social studies related. So keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. Very important as well that our students know know how to shift gears. They need to know how to do the purpose for reading each one. They need to know the number of questions. They also need to be given a heads up on that they might get additional questions, and they also need to be informed about the time that they have. In regards to the field testing, you might want to inform students that they might or may not encounter some writing questions, and they are going to be getting more questions than they're anticipating because, again, we don't know which students will get the field test. Do know, though, that their field test questions does not count against them. So let's move on to the blueprint. We will again use the 6th grade blueprint as the basis, and you will be taking notes as we just previously did, and then I will also review the 7th and 8th grade information. So let's start with the reporting categories. They are the same as previous years. Reporting category 1 will continue to be understanding across genres. Reporting category 2 will continue to be understanding and analysis of literary texts. And reporting category 3 will continue to be understanding and analysis of informational text. So what about the number of standards or SCs that are eligible for testing? So that's the next column that you will see there. Originally, the state had mentioned that they would not be labeling anything readiness or supporting, but it looks like there may have been a change there. So now we have the number of standards or which standards are going to be tested. So you can see here for yourselves in reporting category 1, the 6th grade 1, 7th, they are very much alike across the grade levels in terms of which standards. Some of you may not be very familiar with exactly what is a readiness and what is a supporting, and then some of us maybe needing a refresher because it's been such a while since we've even talked about that because it was coming so naturally to us. So I'll be going over that in just a little bit. So let's look at the number of questions by reporting category. So in sixth grade, students will get reporting category 1 is 8, reporting category 2 is 17 questions, and reporting category 3 will be 15 questions for a grand total, again, as you remember earlier, 40 multiple choice for our sixth graders. In terms of seventh grade, reporting category 1 is also 8, reporting category 2, it just goes up 1 to 18, and then reporting category 3 will be 16. And then we have 42 questions for seventh grade. Moving on to eighth grade. Eighth grade, notice again in reporting category 1, they too get 8. So in reporting category 1, 6 through 8, it is 8 questions, while in reporting category 2, it's 19 questions, and reporting category 3, eighth graders will get 17 for a grand total of 44 questions. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is our test blueprint. You may recall from the testing blueprint that we do have readiness and supporting standards. So just a friendly reminder, again, some of you brand new teachers may not be very familiar with what this means. And those of you that are seasoned teachers may just need a quick refresher. So here it is. So what does reading standards mean? It has the following characteristics. Readiness standards, when they are labeled as such, they are essential for success in the current grade level or course. They are important for preparedness for the next grade level or course. They support post-secondary readiness. They necessitate in-depth instruction. So important. This is one of probably my favorite bullets. And they address broad and deep ideas. While supporting standards have the following characteristics. Although introduced in the grade level or course, they may be emphasized in a subsequent grade or course. Although reinforced in the current grade or course, they may be emphasized in a previous grade or course. They play a role in preparing students for the next grade level or course, but not one that is central. And they address more narrowly defined ideas. So what's very important to note, ladies and gentlemen, is that readiness standards have 60 to 70% probability of being tested. They're going to mean a lot more to you once you see the document that has them all labeled. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind in terms of what it means. And also know that something that is labeled a readiness has a 60 to 70% chance of being tested, while supporting standards have a 30 to 40% probability of being tested. And again, in a minute, you will see all the SCs and which ones have a higher probability of being tested. But I will caution you, we have some standards that are labeled supporting, but they're very, very important. So we cannot totally be misled by the keyword supporting there, where it says, oh, well, that's only 30 to 40% chance of being tested. I'm going to show you where you need to be extremely careful with that. And it is not something necessarily that we just put aside. It is something, though, that we need to be cautious about when we proceed with our supporting standards. But again, I will be telling you more about those momentarily. Just as we did with the test design, we're going to do the same thing with the testing blueprint. I, again, gave you a lot of information, so I want to just have you pause for a little bit, and I want you to think, again, why is it important, though? This one only applies to you. Why is it important for you as the teacher to know this information? I'll give you some time to think. One thing you might have thought about is, of course, the number of questions that our students encounter. And when you think about what it is that, as an example, what it is that you're going to be tutoring, and you want to focus on certain things because some have more readiness standards than others. Just a simple example there. I'm a big believer of getting more bang for your buck in terms of what do we focus on when we're pressed for time. So when it comes down to the number of questions total, and it also comes down to the number of standards, the number of readiness standards, and then what do we focus on? What do we really need to focus on when it's getting down to the wire? So we have reached the point where we are going to meet the stars of the show. Who are the stars of the show? Here it comes, ladies and gentlemen. Now we're going to talk about the actual student expectations, or the SEs that are eligible for testing. So dun dun dun, here it is. So these are the documents that the state released. And notice it says 2022 on each one of them, whether it be 6th, 7th, or 8th. And then the rest reads eligible Texas essential knowledge and skills. Once again, remember that the key word there is eligible, which means that any of these could appear on the assessment, not necessarily all of them. It's not possible to test all SEs. So that's why we have the keyword eligible, meaning any of these can be tested. So one of these, each of these was released per grade level. So these are the ones that I referenced. Okay, so I just wanted you to know that it's not a particular thing that we do in a particular district or anything like that. These come directly from the state. So what I wanted to show you is just at least that very first page of the guides. This one is the 6th grade, but you know that 7th and 8th grade are very, very similar. So each guide looks like this. Let's take a look at that. So each guide will provide us with the reporting categories. And then right underneath the reporting categories, it lists the SEs. Okay, it lists the SEs. And they are labeled, if you notice here as well, they are going to be labeled supporting and or readiness. So, ladies and gentlemen, rather than hand you each of these guides by grade level, what I've done is I've created one document that may make things easier for you. I've managed to put 6th, 7th, and 8th grade by reporting category. I've put all the information I presented to you thus far into one document that may serve better use to you. I especially think about the importance of you knowing about the vertical alignment, for example. And also, we know we have some colleagues that don't just teach one grade level. They may teach 7th and 8th or 6th and 7th. We also have our ESL and our special education colleagues that may be needing a document with multiple grades. So for multiple reasons, ladies and gentlemen, I created one document that I hope is a really big support for you. So I'm going to take you into that document next. And again, just a reminder that this is going to include grade 6 through 8. And everything that you see on the document comes from the test design, the blueprint, and of course, the SEs that are eligible for testing this year. So you have a copy of this document. So this is the one that you will be needing next. So make sure that you have that handy. What I want to do right now is just very quickly explain what is on the document itself. Across the top, you will see the reporting category. You may remember that from the blueprint. And in reporting category 1, it is understanding and analysis across genres. The student will demonstrate an ability to understand and analyze a variety of written text across reading genres. And then right underneath that, notice you have the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade columns. And underneath each grade level, you will find, you may remember that from the blueprint as well, the number of questions. So that is included in here. So you have 6th grade, 7th, and 8th for reporting category 1 as an example, all have a grand total of 8 questions. After that, what you will see are the SEs, or the student expectations, that are going to be tested in this particular example. Again, it's reporting category 1. And then I've also added then supporting and or readiness. So I just wanted to explain that to you. And now we're going to go ahead and get going into our very first one. But before we do that, I wanted to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do with the guide. So what will we do with it? One of the things that I want you to do as we're going through it is I want you to notice how the SEs are vertically aligned. And that simply means, how are they the same in terms of their verbs, the level of thinking, and how are they different? We also want to look at that the nouns, which is the actual content and or the academic vocabulary that we need to familiarize our students with. And then I also want you to note Are they all across grade levels, readiness or supporting, or do they change? Is it supporting in one grade level while it changes to readiness in another? So as we go through the document, I will give you opportunity to process it, but I want you to think about the vertical alignment, the rigor, the level of thinking required through that verb, that academic vocabulary or content through the nouns, and then the readiness and supporting standards. So we're going to spend the greater percentage of our time on this document. And because of that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to review you through a process as you view this webinar. As you begin to study the SEs, I really am going to encourage you that you stop the webinar and that you do some highlighting, especially of those key nouns and those key verbs going on your in the student expectations. And I think it's also important that you take those notes and that you use sticky notes wherever applicable. One example, and you might want to do that right now, is to label reporting category 1, reporting category 2, and reporting category 3. If you take a look at your document, of course, it starts automatically with reporting category 1. If you go one page over, you'll see reporting category 2. So you might want to tab that as an example. And then you go another couple of pages over, and then you'll find reporting category 3. So again, as we go through this webinar, I will be providing you time to stop, highlight, take notes, and use sticky notes to your heart's content. So here are the SEs for category 1 across genres. Notice that for this category, once again, a reminder, for 6 through 8, they get 8 questions. Please know that the majority of the questions for this category will be from 5E, which is the 5E is for paired text. Students will typically get 4 to 5 questions for the paired. So if we only have 8 questions, but 4 to 5 come from the paired, that means that the remaining questions will come for vocabulary, which are your 2A through your 2C. So now is the time to compare the standards across grade levels. I will do 2A and 2B as examples, and then I will provide you with some time when you will be doing the rest of the SCs. So let's look at the verbs, which show the level of thinking required, and the nouns, which is your academic vocabulary and or your content. And then a reminder that readiness or supporting, when they're labeled as such, when they are labeled readiness, they have a 60 to 70% chance of being tested, while the supporting standards have a 30 to 40% chance of being tested. So let's read the SE for 6th grade on 2A. We have use print or digital resources to determine the meaning, syllabication, pronunciation, word origin, and part of speech. So our keywords here, we have use and determine as our verbs, the level of thinking required for this SC. And then our content, we have multiple ones here. We have the resources, using those resources. And then what are they to use them for? To determine meaning, syllabication, and so on and so forth. So that's what we need to start with. We need to look for those nouns and those verbs. And then the next thing we want to do is compare across grade level. So 2A, notice that it is identical. We don't have any changes here. So the vertical alignment, notice that these are identical. You will also notice that the 2A is all a supporting standard, whether it's for 6th grade, 7th grade, or 8th grade. Let's do one more example. Let's look at 2B. The verb here is use, and that is also across grade levels. And the noun is context, also across grade levels. But notice here though that in grade 7, in grade 6, it reads use context such as definition, analogy, and examples to clarify the meaning of words. But then there's a change in 7th grade. Use context such as contrast or cause and effect to clarify the meaning of verbs. And then it shifts and changes yet again. In 8th grade, use context within or beyond a paragraph to clarify the meaning of unfamiliar or ambiguous words. So in this particular example, so 2A does not change. 2B, although it's all about context, there are some differences rather. when it comes down to the SE. I do want you to note that historically, when it comes down to previous assessments, 2B, in terms of the vocabulary, has received more attention. Okay, so if you notice, it's also the readiness as opposed to 2A and 2C. So, a reminder, just a very quick recap on here, ladies and gentlemen. We have the vocabulary SCs are the ones at the top. You might want to make a note of that. And then you have your paired text SE. Okay, you have your paired text SE here. So you might want to take a note of that. Now you will have time to look at the verbs and nouns across the other SCs for the remainder, or give you that opportunity again to process it for just a little bit and look at the others. Take a little bit of time now, ladies and gentlemen. I know I went over everything very quickly right now, so this would be your opportunity to stop the webinar and highlight and make notes and tab anything that you want to tab with sticky notes, so that any notes that you want to add that want to stand out to you. So I'm going to have you stop the webinar at this time so that you have that opportunity to look a little bit more thoroughly, a little more closely at reporting category 1, and then you can resume when you are ready. Welcome back, everyone. Now we're going to continue with reporting category 2, understanding and analysis of literary texts. 6th graders will get 17 questions in this reporting category. 7th will get 18, and 8th graders will get 19 questions. The literary genres eligible, just a reminder, for reporting category 2, you might want to make a note of this, is fiction in the form of a short story, literary nonfiction, poetry, and genre. And again, remember that literary nonfiction is in the form of a memoir. So 5C through 5G are your comprehension essays. You might want to make a note of that. While 6C through 6D are your response skills essays. And then your 7A through 7D are the essays that are specific to literary elements. So now let's move on. So now for reporting category 2, just as we did with reporting category 1, I'm going to give you time to look at how the essays are vertically aligned. You want to look again at those, at the rigor or the level of thinking via your verbs. You want to look at your academic vocabulary and content through your nouns. And you also want to look at readiness and supporting. Remember that you're looking across grade levels. You're going to look at some similarities and differences for each of those SCs for reporting category 2. So I'm going to ask that you stop the webinar at this time and that you do any highlighting of those nouns, verbs, etc., and make some notes and use sticky notes in any way that you would like to. And when you are ready, you will stop the webinar at this time. And when you are ready, you will resume. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So let's do a quick review of some of these SCs. So just a few things that you might want to make a note of. So when it comes to literary text, students will make predictions, inferences, key ideas, summarize. Very, very important that students use text evidence to support any response that they give you. It's always about backing it up, cite your evidence. And again, that is very much aligned to inferencing. In terms of the literary elements, students will infer about theme. They will also, it's very important that when it comes to literary text, students are analyzing characters, analyzing that plot development, and analyze setting. Remember, the readiness standards are more likely to appear, and in this case, inferencing, especially when it comes down to characterization and plot development. So just giving you some pointers and some heads up on some more important things that students must know how to do once they go into that assessment. So now we're going to go on to the next page of reporting category 2. So here are the remainder of the SCs for reporting category 2. And this, ladies and gentlemen, you may have remembered that I had mentioned that there are some SCs that are label supporting, but play a very important part. And we have reached that point here. When it comes down to 8A, that is the SC specific to fiction, adventure stories, historical fiction. So that's very important because it's all connection to that big umbrella of fiction. While 8B is an SC specific to poetry. Okay, this one is specific to poetry. And that is very, again, one of those genres that is eligible for testing. Then 8C is specific to drama. This is about playwrights and staging and so on and so forth. So, for example, 8B, we do rhyme, meter, and stanzas and lines. That is specific to poetry. While the use of the words playwright and dialogues, staging rather, that is specific. Again, playwright and staging and stage directions, for example, are directly linked to drama. So this is the SC that I was talking about earlier. These are the SCs that, although they're labeled supporting, we can't be misled by that. So 8A, 8B, and 8C. You might want to make a note. 8A is specific to fiction, 8B to poetry, and 8C to drama. Then notice the remainder. We have 9A through 9F. This, ladies and gentlemen, is all about author's craft. Okay, it's all about author's craft. So now I'm going to give you time to look at those, again, those nouns, those verbs, that rigor, that vertical alignment. You're looking at readiness, supporting, so on and so forth. You're going to continue using the same process. So at this time, folks, you're going to stop the webinar. You're going to be doing some highlighting, taking notes, and do any stickies that you want, and then you will resume when you are ready. Again, you're looking at nouns, verbs, those academic vocabulary, everything that we previously did on page 1. You're going to continue with that. And again, a reminder, resume when you are ready. Welcome back. So let's do a quick review of these SCs. 8A is simply, as I mentioned earlier, about just literary genres. 8B, I cannot stress this enough, is specific to poetry, and 8C specific to drama. The SCs that are coming down for author's craft, ladies and gentlemen, we have 9A, if you notice, out of all of them. I'm sure that you noticed that out of all the SCs for author's craft, the one that is labeled readiness is explaining the author's purpose and message within a text. And it is the same across grade levels. That is the one that has a high probability of appearing on the assessment, and that has proven to be true from years past. The other one that I want to point out to, ladies and gentlemen, that seems to be popular, even though it's labeled supporting, is anything that is related to the use of figurative language or literary devices. Students tend to get questions about why the author used a specific simile or metaphor or other literary devices. And it's not just about being able to identify it, it is about why. Why did the author use a simile or metaphor or personification, anything along those lines? So now we are ready to move on to our final reporting category 3. Hello everyone and welcome back. So let's do a quick review of the SCs for this first page of reporting category 3. So when it comes to both informational and argumentative text, students will make inferences, they will determine key details and ideas, they will use text evidence to support their responses, and one important thing that does appear for them on the assessment is the summary, selecting the best summary. That is a little bit more popular in reporting category 3 than in reporting category 2. So when it comes specifically to informational text, students will identify the controlling idea and they need to support it with evidence. They will use key text features and understand the organizational pattern. I'm sure that you noticed that the organizational patterns differ from grade level to grade level. The readiness SCs for informational text is controlling idea, and the one for argumentative text is identifying the claim. Very similar in terms of the nature behind it, that finding that controlling idea or that claim. And so when we are looking at SCs, again, remember that here for argumentative text, this is only the first SC. We're going to continue on the next page so that you can see what else they need to do with argumentative text. So let's move on to page 2 of reporting category 3. So let's look at the remainder of the SCs for argumentative text. We already saw 8E1. Now we're going to look at 8E2 to 8E3. Thereafter, you will see 9A through 9G and author's craft. Seem familiar? Well, it absolutely is. It also appeared in reporting category 2. So 82 and 83 continued from the previous page. These are the two remaining SCs for argumentative texts. And then we have author's craft SCs. Just like you saw them in reporting category 2, you're seeing them again in reporting category 3. Hint, hint. Very important. Author's craft, very important. So you know the drill now, ladies and gentlemen. Stop the webinar. Do your highlighting of your nouns and verbs. Take notes as you see fit. And you are, again, looking at those readiness and supporting and sticky notes to your heart's content. And you will resume when you are ready. Welcome back and hey. So let's do a quick review of the SCs. The other two SCs were argumentative text. They require students to explain the evidence that supports the argument, but notice how it differs for each grade level in this particular case. And students also have to identify the intended audience. Notice the different types of evidence in the readiness standard. Reminder that the argumentative texts have not been tested in previous years. So it's going to take us, perhaps we may want to reserve some time, additional time for argumentative texts, because again, this has not been tested before. And then we have author's craft again, with the author's purpose being readiness once again. So that concludes the SCs that will be tested. Next, I will give you a recommendation regarding the types of questions that may be asked for these SCs. So what is the best resource to use to get an idea of how the SCs will be tested? The 2021 STAAR release questions. Those are the ones that are more aligned to our new SEs. So here's a recommendation. Rather than downloading the release test from the TA website, you might consider going into the Lead Forward site under Resources and create this booklet for only the 2021 questions. And you can do this for 6th, 7th, and 8th. What you see here is the 6th grade example. So again, Lead Forward, and you're looking for Investigate the Questions under Resources, and you can create one booklet per grade level. If you do download the test from the TA website, if you choose to do that way, you will have to label all the SCs for yourself. So this, in my humble opinion, is much more convenient. So when you download the actual booklet itself, this is what you get. You get the SCs that are labeled, and then you get the sample question stems. So that is why I think it's easier, because you can actually just get the 2021 and you already have all the labeling done for you. So we are ready to close out this session. We are going to wrap it up. So what I'm going to recommend that you do, and again, feel free to stop the webinar if need be. I want to know, perhaps you have a burning question. You pose a question or two or three, and or make a statement. Anything that really stood out to you, anything that had an impact on you, is what you can write down. So again, you might want to stop the webinar at this time and pose a question or make a statement. What I will also tell you folks is that please feel free to email me your questions. I will be more than happy to find you an answer if I don't already have it, and I will definitely get back to you as soon as possible. So wrap it up, pose a question, or make a statement. And that is it, fabulous reading language arts teachers. Don't fret. I know that you got this, and no doubt that you can absolutely do this. You know I'm here for you, so reach out anytime. You know how to find me. You can call me, you can text me, or you can email me. Thank you so much for spending part of your day viewing this webinar. Have an awesome one.